Okay, good day. So today I'm going to discuss scene setting and figurative languages in creative nonfiction. So for this lesson, these are our objectives. Okay, so at the end of this lesson, you should be able to first identify how scene, setting, atmosphere, and mood are used in creative nonfiction, similar to that of fictional works. Second, identify how literary devices, idioms, and figures of speech are used in creative nonfiction, similar to that of fictional works. So let's start with the discussion. So, in establishing your scene, we need to think of the emotion that we wanted to imply or that we want to imply to our readers. So, in that case, in here or in establishing your scene, we need to consider three things. The first one is tone. So, in the past lesson, we all know that tone is defined as the attitude, the emotion, or the treatment of the writer towards his subject or his topic. Okay, so this is the emotion that the writer wants to imply uh, when he or she is writing a certain text. So tone is evident in the choice of words and also when a certain writer is choosing his or her speaker. So speaker or the narrator in the text is somehow or also known as speaker's voice. Okay, so the narrative voice or the voice of the narrator in a certain story. It is also called authorial voice or the voice of the speaker. Tone is always author-centric or author-centered. So when establishing the tone of a certain text, we writers should always consider the readers. Okay, we should always consider uh, their possible emotion or possible reaction when they are reading our text. We always need to think about the mood that we will be creating in our narrative or whenever we are writing text. So that's the first thing that we must consider whenever we are establishing or setting up our scenes. Second is the mood. Okay, so mood is reader-centric. It is reader-centered. It is the initial or it is the reaction of the readers towards the text that we have written. So it could be their emotional reaction or their emotional state after reading the text, or this could be their disposition in mind, or this could be their perception or interpretation of our text after they have read it. Okay, so tone and mood are both emotions. Okay, so they just deeper or differ when it comes to the person they came from. Okay, so tone came from the writer. It is the attitude or the emotion of the writer towards the text. On the other hand, mood is the emotion or the reaction of the readers towards the text. Okay, and then the third thing that we must consider is the style. So style is the third element used for creating or changing the feel of a certain scene or story. Tone is style is different or quite different from tone and mood because in style it affects the first two elements, the tone and the mood. So we could somehow establish the emotion or the tone of a certain text by a specific writing style. So style is defined as the way the writer uses words in order for him to create not only the events of a certain story or not only the scene or the setting of a certain story, but also their feel or the emotion of those or the emotion that you might feel on that specific event or on that specific scene. Okay, so a writer's style could be observed on his choice of words or on his use of words or diction, and also through his sentence structure or sentence or word order. Okay, so a style is the writer's method to create mood and tone. Okay, so the feel of the fiction. Through style, we could establish the different mood or the different emotions that we wanted to imply on our text. Style is also dependent on the subject matter. So if you want your readers to become familiar of your topic, most probably the writing style that you must use is either a descriptive writing style or an expository writing style, wherein our main goal is to inform the readers about our chosen topic. Okay, in English, we have four main writing styles, and those are narrative, descriptive, expository, and persuasive. We also have other writing styles like analytical, critical, business correspondence, creative writing style, but those four mentioned writing styles were the main writing styles used in writing. Okay, so those are the three things that we need to consider when we are establishing or somehow setting up the scenes of our story. Those three elements are all involved when we want to somehow establish the emotions that the readers might feel or must feel when they are reading our text. Okay, and then next would be how or the techniques or the ways in which we can establish the setting of our story or of our text. So when establishing or building up the setting of our text, first we should ask ourselves questions and also answer those questions so that the setting that we will be building is a good and somehow relatable setting for our readers. So these are the questions that you might answer whenever you are choosing your setting. Okay, so what does the place represent and what does the place symbolize? So we all know that a specific place might symbolize or might represent another thing or another concept. So we may use a certain place or a certain setting as a representation or as a symbolism of the things that we want to imply or that we want to share to our readers. Third, what is the significance of that setting or of that place or time to you as the writer? So we might choose a place or a setting because it is important to us because we have somehow sentimental values or sentimental value for that specific place. So that might be a reason for choosing a certain setting or a certain place. Fourth, what are the physical characteristics of the place? So what does it look like? You may describe that place in your text. And then what memories are evoked by a particular place? So we all know that Filipinos tend to put sentimental values, or we are a sentimental uh, nation or citizen. So w- may the reason behind choosing a certain place might be the memories that we associated to certain place. So that could be a reason when we are choosing a place or a setting. And then lastly, how do you feel about the place? So do you like that place? If ever you like that place or you are interested to that place, what could be the reasons for those for that specific interest? Or if you don't like that place, what could be the reason for you not liking a certain place? So you may answer these questions. Aside from answering these questions, you could also look around you. Okay, so if ever you are not decided yet for your place or for the setting of your story or text, you may look around you so that you could get inspiration from the things that you could see when you are looking around. Okay, so you could also describe the interior and the exterior of the place that you have chosen, or you could just focus on your house and then look around, and then you could somehow use the interior of your house as the representation of your setting. Also, you could write physical attributes or the characteristic of the place that you are somehow uh, interested on. Ayan. So, what are the associations of those things that you can see on your surrounding to the situation that you want to imply on your text? Okay, so you could somehow answer those questions. Okay, so these we have here examples wherein the setting of the text was compared to another place or somehow associated to different situation. Like, oh yeah, for example, we have this statement: the house where I smell disgusting like an ashtray filled with cigarettes. So in here, um, the situation that you will feel when you enter the place was being compared to another situation which is somehow familiar to us as readers. Okay, and then we also have this statement: I live in a house that's like a prison where my spouse gives orders as if she's the warden. So in this case, the setting is being compared to a prison cell. Okay, so whenever you are establishing your setting, you must always remember that you need to show readers your setting. So showing the readers your setting means you need to write vivid description. You need to put details on that specific setting. You need to use sensory imagery. You need to somehow immerse your readers to the place so that when they close their eyes, they could feel, okay, they can see, they can smell or hear whatever uh, things you are putting on that setting. Okay, and you could also use or you could also deploy memorable similes and metaphors so that the emotion of our readers will be triggered or evoked whenever they are reading descriptions of our place. Showing readers the place means you are including concrete and specific details about the setting. Okay, you are giving them noticeable things when you somehow encountered that specific location. Okay, so when showing the readers your setting, you don't have to include all the details or description. You don't have to mention even the smallest particles on that specific setting. You just need to include uh, things or um, details that have significance to yourself and to your reader. So, whenever you are writing descriptions of a certain place, you could also use sensory imagery that will somehow um, trigger or appeal to the senses of our readers. And also, when you are publishing your setting, you need to take note of your authorial voice. Authorial voice is very important. So, authorial voice will not only lead the readers to a specific mood on our text, but it will also help them to somehow visualize, imagine, think of our setting on that specific scene. Okay? And then whenever you are setting up your scene, take note of these three tips. If your speaker is not familiar, or if the speaker is not familiar with the specific date, time, and place of the story, we might not mention them. Okay? Or we don't need to mention those information because the credibility of us writers and even the speaker of the text will be lessened. Okay, or our credibility will diminish. So we might not mention those specific details. So if ever the setting is unfamiliar, we could make our speaker inquisitive. Okay, we can make them like an investigator who is asking question, who is looking for details. Okay, who is uh somehow um gathering information about the setting that we are using in a specific story. And lastly, since the setting is unfamiliar, whenever the speaker is describing the setting, he or she could use details taken from the other sources or details that somehow other characters in the story have mentioned. Okay, so meaning the description of the place or the description of the setting of our story will not directly come from the speaker. The speaker will state it using indirect speeches, meaning he or she will be using other person to describe or other person's statements to describe the setting. Okay, so those are the three tips whenever we are establishing an unfamiliar setting. We could focus on description given by other person or taken from other sources so that the credibility of the writer will still be the same. Okay, so those are the things that you need to remember whenever you are setting up your scenes and establishing your setting in your text or story. So now we will be moving on to figurative language. So when we say figurative language, these are words or phrases that departs from literal language. So meaning when we are analyzing this kind of phrases or words, we need to somehow depart from its dictionary meaning. Okay, we need to analyze it. We need to read between the lines. We need to think of the possible symbolisms or the possible connotative meanings that are implied on those words or phrases. We could use figurative language if ever we want to express comparison or if we want to compare two dissimilar things with something in common. We could also use it whenever we want to emphasize or clarify something. And also, if we want to somehow make our text more creative or interesting. Okay, so those are the usage of figurative languages. So today we will just focus on the 15 of the most commonly used figurative languages. So first, we will have alliteration. So in figurative language or figures of speech, we have four types of repetition. The first of those four types of repetition is alliteration. So in alliteration, we are repeating the initial consonant sound. So again, in here, we are repeating the initial consonant sound because if the consonant sound being repeated is placed at the middle or at the end of the word, it will no longer be alliteration. Okay? So the repetition of consonant sounds at the middle or at the end of the word or words is called consonants. Okay? Again, the repetition of consonant sound at the middle or at the end part of the words are called or is called consonant sounds or consonants. Okay, sorry, consonants. But if the consonant sound being repeated is placed at the beginning of the words, it will be called alliteration. So here are some of the examples wherein alliteration is applied. So we use alliteration in the tongue twister She Sells Seashells by the Seashore. And also in the tongue twister Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Okay, so in here alliteration is being used. On the first example, the sound is being repeated. And then on the second example, the sound or the sound of P is being repeated. Okay, so that is alliteration. Second, we have anaphora. Anaphora is the repetition of the same word or phrase of at the beginning of the succeeding clauses or the successive verses or lines. So like for example, we have here the statement, unfortunately, I was in the wrong place at the wrong time on the wrong day. In here, the word wrong is being repeated 3 times. On the other example, every breath you take, every move you make, every bond you break, every step you take, I'll be watching you. In here, the word every is being repeated. So you will usually encounter anaphora uh, on song lyrics or even on poetry. So in here, we want to emphasize a certain word. Uh, we wanted to give emphasis on that specific word, okay, or on the meaning of that specific word. So that is anaphora. Next, it's apostrophe. In apostrophe, we are directly addressing the statement on a non-existent person or on an inanimate object. So as if they were living. Okay? So that's apostrophe. We are directly talking to them. Okay? For example, oh, you stupid car, you never work when I need you to. Bird side. So in here, we are directly talking to a car, which is an inanimate object. Okay? So that's apostrophe. Okay? Another example, oh, Captain, my Captain, our fearful trip is done. The ship has withered every rock. The prize we sought is won. So in this case, we are the persona is talking to his captain, which who is no longer present on that day when he or she finished his adventure or trip. So that is apostrophe. Third is assonance. So assonance is the repetition of vowel sounds in the neighboring words. So this is the fourth type of repetition in figurative language. So in alliteration, initial consonant sound is being repeated. In consonants, consonant sound in the middle or at the end part of the word is being repeated. In anaphora, word or phrases are being repeated. In assonance, vowel sounds is or are being repeated. So for example, in here we have repeated the diphthong ow 4 times. So how now brown cow. Okay? And then we have repeated here the vowel sound clap your hands or the in clap your hands and stamp your feet. Okay? So the vowel sound is being repeated thrice. And then the fifth one is euphemism. Euphemism is the substitution of an inoffensive term for one considered offensively explicit. So in here, uh, somehow we have the intention of not hurting someone of our statement. Okay, so instead of using an offensive statement, we are substituting it with an inoffensive statement. So somehow we are um like lessen we are slightly um diminishing the offensive part of our text. Okay, the meaning of somehow we are wanting it to become inoffensive so that the the addressee will not be hurt or offended. So for example, we're teaching our toddler to go potty. So instead of saying we are teaching our children to pee or to poop, which is somehow insensitive in some aspects or in some cases. So we change the word poo or poop or P to potty. Okay, so another example, instead of using died, you could use passed away. So to somehow um, lessen the severity or the seriousness of the word. Okay, and then instead of fired, you could use let go. Instead of using the word sex, you could use make love. And instead of using euthanized, you could use put down. So that's euphemism. Next is a hyperbole or hyperbole. Hyperbole is an extravagant statement. In here, we are using exaggerated terms for the purpose of emphasis or heightened effects. So these are the examples of statement wherein hyperbole is used. Okay, so I have a ton of things to do when I get home. So meaning he or she has a lot of things. Okay, but in here, instead of using a lot, which is somehow uh, not that many or not that emphasized. Okay, so you may use a ton. Okay, so her brain is the size of P. He is older than a hill or than the hills, or I will die if she asks me to dance. So in here, we are exaggerating the meaning of the statement. So that's hyperbole. Next is irony. Irony is the use of words to convey the opposite of the literal meaning. Also, it is a statement or a situation where the meaning is contradicted by the appearance or presentation of the idea. So, for example, I love spending big bucks. So, if you will be looking at the meaning of this, the character or the subject is a big spender. Okay, he loves to spend his money. But if you will continue reading and at the latter part of the sentence, the description or the characteristic of the persona is given. So, oh, I love spending big bucks, said my dad, a notorious penny pincher. In Filipino, penny pincher means kuripot. So, if you will look at it, it seems like the characteristic of uh, the speaker that he gave to the addressee is that he loves to spend money, but his real characteristic is that he is a penny pincher. It contradicts his characteristic, or it contradicts the meaning of the statement. Another example wherein situational irony is used. Ayan. My wife is a flight attendant, but she is terrified of heights. So meaning in here, um the situation wherein the woman in the sentence is in somehow contradicts her characteristics. Okay, so in here we have situational irony. So next is metaphor. So metaphor is an implied comparison between two dissimilar things that have something in common. So in here we are using direct comparison. So example, all the world's a stage, life is a highway, her eyes were diamonds. So in these examples, the writer directly compared to two dissimilar things that have something in common. So, like for example, in the third example or in the third sentence, her eyes were diamonds. In that case, those those two things, ice and diamonds, are both shiny. Okay, or they are both shining, they are both sparkling. So they were compared, they were directly compared. Okay, that's metaphor, direct comparison. Next is onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia is the use of words that imitate the sounds associated with the objects or actions they refer to. So meaning, the words we are using here represents the sounds, okay, or represents the action that they wanted to imply. For example, the clap of thunder went bang and scared my dog. So in here, the word bang is an alliteration. So Here are other examples of, no, onomatopoeia, sorry. We have the word boing, gargle, clap, zap, pitter patter, broom broom, chug chug, um, the meow of the cat, tick tack, ding dong, and so on and so forth. So those are some examples of onomatopoeia. Third is oxymoron. Oxymoron is a figures of speech or a figure of speech in which incongruous or contradictory terms appear side by side. So meaning we are putting or placing two contradictory words side by side. Okay, for example, he popped the jumbo shrimp in his mouth. Jumbo shrimp is an oxymoron word because jumbo means big and shrimp means, or the characteristic of shrimp is small. So they have a contradicting meaning or idea. Okay, another example is or are absent presence. Okay, so meaning if you are using this term on a certain sentence, your subject is present, but his presence, okay, is absent. Okay, or he's there, but you could not feel him or her. So that's absent presence. We also have bittersweet, original, copy. So those are some examples of oxymoron. So in oxymoron, we are putting two contradictory words side by side. Okay, that's the characteristic of oxymoron. Paradox, on the other hand, is a statement that contradicts itself. Okay? Or a statement that appears to contradict itself. So, if in oxymoron, the terms are contradicting, in paradox, the statement or the meaning of the statement contradicts the statement itself. Okay? Like, for example, this is the beginning of the end. That's paradox. If you will analyze it, the meaning of the sentence contradicts the sentence, or the idea here contradicts the meaning, okay, or the statement. Okay, so in here we have the whole statement as a contradicting or contradictory statement, while in oxymoron we have two words only. Okay, so another example, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. So in here, the second statement or the second clause contradicts the first clause. Okay, so that is paradox. You are putting two contradicting statements side by side. Okay, so that's their difference. So for sure you will be asking me, sir, somehow paradox uh, overlaps with irony. So if we will be removing irony on the frame, we will have different types of contradicting ideas or statements. Okay, so somehow irony is a general contradicting idea or a general statement where ideas are contradicting, and then oxymoron, paradox, and the other types of contradict presentation of contradicting ideas will be present. Okay, so somehow these are specific ironies. Paradox, oxymoron, and the others are specific examples of ironies. Okay, so that's paradox. Next will be personification. So in personification, we are putting human qualities to inanimate objects, okay, or to the things around us. That is personification. So for example, that kitchen knife will take a bite out of your hand if you don't handle it safely. So the term bite out is a characteristic of a human person. But in here, we put that characteristic to an inanimate object, which is a kitchen knife. Another example, the sun smiled down on us. So smiling is a characteristic of a human person. But in here, we put it or we associate it to a sun, which is an inanimate or a non-living thing. Okay, so that's personification. 13, we have simile. So simile is a comparison between two fundamentally or two dissimilar things that also has something in common. But in here, we are using words like and as to state that comparison. In metaphor, we are directly comparing them. But in here, we are stating the comparison between those things using like and as. So for example, Roberto was white as a sheet after he walked out of the horror movie. So Roberto is being compared to a paper or a sheet of paper which is white, okay, or super clean or super neat. Okay, so in here we use the word as. So we also have this sentence, you are as slow as a sloth. Okay, so remember in simile, we are using words as and like to state the comparison between two things. Next would be anecdoche. Anecdoche is a figure of speech in which a part of something is used to represent the whole. Okay, or a part is used to represent the whole thing. For example, Tina is learning her ABCs in preschool. So here, ABC represents the alphabet. Okay? So instead of using the word alphabet or instead of writing uh, all letters of the alphabet, you could just represent or replace it by ABC. That will represent the whole of it. Okay, another example, check out my new wheels. So in here, wheels represent a vehicle or a car. So again, in synecdoche, we are using a part to represent the whole of that thing. Next would be understatement. Understatement is a figure of speech in which a writer or a speaker deliberately makes a situation less important or serious than it is. So in here, we are lessening. Okay, we are somehow um, not taking a certain situation seriously. Okay, so for example, you could say Babe Ruth was a decent ball player. A reporter said with a wink. Or so, for example, you have taken an exam, and then your classmate got a score of 12 out of 100. So you could tell that, oh, it's not just, it is not that low, or your score is not that low. So you are not taking that situation seriously that your classmate uh, might fail the subject because of his score, but you somehow state state the certain situation in a not that serious manner. Okay, or you take that situation in a less important or less serious manner. That is under statement. So like for example, um your classmate got injured, or you might say, oh, your injury is not that serious, okay, or it's not that bad. So somehow, if you will look at it, if you will compare that injury to some accident, yes, it might be, it might not be that bad, but it is considered bad because it's an injury, it's an accident. But in understatement, you are not taking it seriously. Okay? So that is understatement. So next would be idiomatic expression or idiomatic expressions. So these are statements, expressions, or phrases that takes on a symbolic meaning. So these expressions should not be taken literally. So for example, the statement, it's raining cats and dog is an example of an idiom. So here, raining cats and dog doesn't literally mean that the dogs and cats are falling from the sky. But raining cats and dogs means heavy rain, or it is raining, or the rain is heavier than the usual rain. Okay, so other examples are break a leg, which means good luck or do your best. Spill the tea, meaning tell us something about it. Once in a blue moon, meaning rare or it is rarely to happen. Through thick and thin means whatever happens, I'll be there or I'll be loyal to you. Take it with a pinch of salt, meaning don't take it seriously. And lastly, on a cloud nine means very happy. Okay, so those are examples of idiomatic expressions or idioms. So you could use these statements so that your text could be or would be more creative or interesting. Okay, so that is lesson number 8, and I hope that you understood it clearly. And if ever you have questions, you could ask me on our GC. Okay, so that's it. Thank you for listening. Have a great day ahead. Goodbye.